It's another edition of PENSDOWN. This is the program that brings you all the behind the scenes issues as far as journalism and the work of journalists is concerned. Journalists go through a lot. Even the reasons that brought them into the profession matter a lot. But because the news gathering and reporting enterprise does not have room for our views and opinions and some of these experiences, they are unable to tell them. Pens Down is a program solely dedicated to telling the storyteller's story in detail. We turn the CCTV camera on ourselves and then give you a rare inkling into some of the behind the scenes issues we grapple with as journalists. My guest today is an award-winning investigative journalist who is passionate about human interest stories. In 2017, he was named as one of the 20 winners of the International Center for Investigative Journalism's Reporting Fellowship, that's the ICIR. A year later, he was selected as a participant on an EU SDG-sponsored media training workshop on best practices at professional reporting of the 2019 general elections in Nigeria. Currently, he is saddled with delivering business and investigative stories for ICIR Nigeria. He is a versatile reporter, writer, and editor with diverse interests in capital market, fintech, small and medium businesses, travel, tourism, human interest stories, entertainment, and lifestyle. His overall writing and editing experience spans over 7 years, and within this period, he has won 2 poetry awards with 1 journalism award to his credits. I have been joined today on PENSDOWN by Joseph Olaoluwa. Thanks for joining me, my brother.
It's a pleasure.
Right, you are an investigative journalist. That is of interest to me. Now, investigative journalists are those journalists who decide to take the path of unpopular reporting. I am using this in the light of some of the feedback and reaction the people your reports expose make. How many times in the line of duty as an investigative journalist has your life come under threat?
Well, there are two things about the truth. When you tell the truth, yes, it brings you under threat, but it also makes people that you're investigating also get scared of you and also exposes their track. So even if they decide to want to hunt you, they might not be able to do so. Most of the people that have been investigated have not many of them have come out to try and threaten me, but there have been a few subtle threats, maybe some messages. Even some of them have gone ahead to discredit me in the industry because still cover transportation, and I do some part of aviation, and you just find out that you're in a period of blockage, whereby you can't get more information from sources. So, as while threatening one's life is one of the biggest threats to investigative journalism, one of the major ways to stifle journalists is also to block the information gap, make everywhere look like a safe. Oh, even if you call, I know some people that never pick my calls anymore. I mean, some of the airlines I've covered, they would never respond to your calls anymore. So it's a way of stifling when they know that you are on their neck, trying to bring them to justice, trying to be accountable, make them more accountable. So most of them would always blacklist the journalist and stop the information flow. So I would say that the biggest threat is stopping the information flow, which is also another way of not bringing, not allowing the journalists to get more information. Also mean that also all those things might not be well reported. You get, so it's a way of also trying to hold,
mm,
stay away from the light and all that. So yes, a few times they have tried to make subtle messages. I remember I
mm.
did a story I think in 2020. I was at the Punch then.
Okay.
They did a story on how Ethiopian Airlines was flying uh, passengers even before the airspace was locked down. Nobody was
Okay.
flying, but
Mm,
they were flying, and the story was on the front page of Punch. I had the ministers also on it, and it was showing how they were sort of colluding to bypass the major the rule on ground.
mm,
And what happened was that you know, they reported me to when the story came out. They told everyone in the industry that, oh, this guy is writing rubbish. Don't listen to him. And people began to feel the same way as well. They began to
mm,
paint perceptions. And
mm,
then they reported me to my boss and told my boss that I was unethical. I'm an unethical journalist and I don't follow the right procedures. My boss even had to ask me that, how else did I get the information? And I said, I called him. Yes, I did pretend that I was going to fly. And yes, I did go undercover to get that information.
mm,
But it was still information that was gotten. It was not um, under duress. It wasn't threatened. It wasn't blackmailed. So he gave the information still, and there was evidence for that. I told him that there was no, it was just an undercover information that I got. And it didn't mean that I was wrong, but he tried to defame me and speak to other journalists that will cover the same travel and aviation and say,
mm,
this guy, don't associate with him. Let's stay away from him. And a lot of people had the perception for even years
mm,
until after that was cleared, subsequently. So aside from threatening, when the truth is actually revealed, most times, some of these people don't. There's really nothing they can do. If the kind of journalism that we do or I do is to tell you, okay, this is where I got the information from. This is how I got the information, so that
mm,
even you yourself can also go and verify that information, or also go around the same road to get almost the same kind of information. So it shows that, okay, we this thing was not fabricated. It was
mm,
real. It was genuine. So when it's being revealed to the public like that, most of those actors in that are caught in that act, they are always very scared to even come and say, okay, let's refute this thing because the evidence is irrefutable. So most of the
mm,
time, they just try to scamper away and discredit everybody and make it look like, oh, this work is rubbish. This person
mm,
that did it was not thinking properly, and just make it
mm.
look. So since they already know that they've been caught, most times. So,
I
so
see.
that's how it
Let's look at your work as an investigative journalist once again. How many times have you been approached with something, whether monetary or material, to compromise something you were doing, some work you were doing as a journalist?
But this is a common it's a common thing to be met with money, to be told to, in fact, to be stalled,
Mm,
with money, and just said, what, um, forget this, just forget this story. This amount of money is given. A couple of times I've been approached to say, okay, what, there are many times, even sometimes it has the interest of, say, the governor. He has sometimes the interest of, say maybe a top official. Oh,
mm,
some of them even, in fact, some of them go as far as saying, okay, what? Let's give you a Christmas gift. So Christmas is coming,
mm,
and they send you a bag of rice, and they say, oh, this is Christmas gift, and I'm like, for what reason? There was one time, um, in the maritime sector, I was sent, I think, a bag of rice. I think two bags of rice. I told me to
mm,
go and pick it at the customs, one of the customs command, and I asked them for what? Like, I'm not looking for a bag of rice. I didn't ask for a bag of rice. Why you tell him to go and pick it up somewhere else? And they said, don't I want it? I said, I don't want it. Whoever is holding it in trust for me, person can have the rice. I don't want the rice. And so they can, yes, it can be inducement. It can even be foreign trips. It can be
Mm,
foreign trips. It can be extra codes and all of those things. As much as possible, I try to avoid being given gifts by most public officials. I try to really avoid it most of the time. I try to just say, you know what, I'd rather go for an interview instead. If you want to really honor me, I'll be glad to have an interview to hear from your own perspective. That way, but most of the time, that's the easiest way to say, do you know what? A lot of people are under these payrolls of some of these people. And
mm,
when you continue to receive these gifts and inducements, sometimes you cannot hold them accountable, even
yeah.
when they are obviously doing something wrong.
Mm,
And it happens even with state government, local government, and the rest.
mm,
So I tell them, do you know what? Can you just let us have an interview instead, and forget about all of these inducements. I am well paid. If I were not well paid, I would probably find employment somewhere else. But I'm
mm,
well. I don't need I don't need any kind of encouragement from you to do
mm,
my. It's a job I chose to do. So most
mm.
times I always just try to put it on the side and say no. Let's talk about other things.
How did you discover the journalist in you while growing up? What brought you here? How did the decision to pursue journalism come about?
Well, many people don't know that I used to do poetry before. I used
Okay.
to be before I started journalism. Uh, I my background was I had parents. I had a professor father. I
Mm,
still still alive. My mom is also well educated as well. My parents placed a premium on education, and right from our childhood, they've always encouraged us to read. I think I began to find out about myself more when I was in high school, or in Nigeria they call it secondary school,
mm,
and I realized that while I was in art class, I couldn't write. I was quite intelligent, but I couldn't like pen anything creative. But a lot
okay.
of my colleagues could do that. A lot of my
Mm,
colleagues could do that, and so um, after I wrote my JAMB, which was
okay.
into get admission into a foreign
Mm,
into university,
yeah.
uh, I wanted to study law, but unfortunately, I got English. I got English, and it didn't make any sense to me because my dad was a lawyer,
Okay.
uh, and after some time, I began to lecture in Lagos State University in Ojo,
Mm,
in Lagos, and I didn't. I wanted to succeed my father because he studied law and he began to
yeah.
teach afterward. But since I couldn't get into law, my parents felt that I should just go to study English for the
Mm,
meantime while I
mm,
decided what to like.
yeah.
And so it was while I was studying English that I realized that there was some writing agency on campus. I used to be I studied from Obafemi Awolowo University, OAU,
Okay.
Ile.
Mm,
And so I noticed that there's so many writing agencies, so many clubs, so many agencies on writing. Well, I was still not yet um convinced I could write.
okay.
So after the first semester, we had a 6 month strike, an
Mm,
ASU, and then during that ASU strike, I began to work in the pharmacy
okay.
after like the fourth month. And it was actually a beautiful lady that inspired my poetry. I
Okay.
tried to describe her in those words, and that's
Mm,
how I began to do poetry. And so I said poetry while we were on the strike. And my time the strike was over, second semester, I began to look for a way to channel my inner poetry too.
mm,
And so when the second year came, I met a friend who was trying to get me to join either ISEC or go into full-time writing. And he was telling me I should join ISEC. If I join ISEC, I'll travel around the world, I'll get internships, and I'll have a secure future. And then I just discovered that I could write, and I wanted to try and see if I could join any of those agencies on campus
okay.
to see channel channel it. not a creative agency, but let me see if I can try join a journalism agency. Let me see because for me, I
Mm.
think journalism was a challenge. I
Okay.
already had the creative writing ability, so I was like, let me see what I can challenge that with.
Mm.
And I had a rocky interview because I interviewed for the position when I was in 200 level.
Okay.
By the end of the interview, they took me in. They took me in, and I'll say that was when I was in. That was 2014 when
Okay.
I was 200 level, and
Mm.
ever since then, I'd always wanted to take it from a notch
Mm.
higher.
Yeah.
I'll just do, okay, what next can I be? What next can
Mm.
I be? This thing? And that's how we got yeah, there's over like 7 years now
Wow.
of doing that.
This is interesting. So now, as we speak, you see yourself as a journalist or a poet or both?
Well, at this point, I think I've transcended
Mm.
and even beyond journalism these days because um these days now we talk about content
Yeah.
on a whole new level because journalism now has even evolved from
Mm.
those ordinary writing news
That's
to
right.
multimedia to
Mm-hmm.
analytics. Now I
Yeah.
work for ICIR and ICIR is online. When I was at
Mm.
Punch, we had online and newspaper. So you think about
Mm.
distribution, you think about circulation and
That's
all of
right.
those things. Now that when I was at Nation, when Stanley Kotofodrin was my editor then and my
Mm.
boss, we thought
Mm.
about new content. I think as about 2015, 2016, thereabouts, we're talking about how to have alternative content, something that is not news and is also entertainment, something in between that people want to read. I think that's what better some of the online news platform we have in Nigeria today. Some of
Mm.
those things we're trying to experiment, how to have a multimedia newsroom. And
Mm.
so as of today, I think I've become a full content strategist that has explored poetry, explored short story writing,
Mm.
explored journalism, explored
Mm.
investigative journalism as well. Try to look at how we can do multimedia. I think at the last I think
Mm.
I think some 2 3 days ago,
Yeah.
there was this protest at the
Mm.
airport, Lagos Airport.
Yes.
Some students were
Yes.
in the ASU strike. And
Yes.
I could tell you that between 8 a.m. and 1 p.m., I'd done a multimedia report. I'd done the
Okay.
video of the done the video of what they were doing. I'd written the
Mm.
text already, it was published. We're thinking about how to probably put some infographics together already. So these are part of what builds one up as a content strategy. So I'll say that
Yeah.
from there, I've come to leverage all of my skills in web,
Mm.
in real sourcing of the news, in how to disseminate it in different modes. Because
Mm.
these days now, when you work for ICR, they tell you, okay, you know what, we want a video from your investigation, we
Yeah.
want an infograph, a graph, any graph that you have, or
Mm.
want some good photos, so that you can have distribution across different
Yeah.
categories of the media.
Yeah.
So I'll say that between then and now, I've leveraged a lot of my skills
Mm.
digitally to
Okay.
become content strategist.
I like where you have ended. How has social media changed the face of journalism?
Wow. I think social media has the word is innovator,
Mm.
and for the longest of time, journalism has remained archaic, has
Yeah.
stayed where it used to be, where it is, and for a lot of media owners that have not come up with that side, a lot of them have actually been swallowed down by the tide because there was a time when it was just news, and there was a
Mm-hmm.
time it was features and creative writing, and there was a time when went to investigative journalism, which a lot of
Mm.
people are now doing, and there are times now where people now do category reporting. At times now people now say, okay, you know what, we want to have a documentary. Let's have
Mm.
those like a drone footage. Some
Yeah.
of the things that and then you look at the way BBC we see their investigative platform, African Eye, runs their
African Eye.
investigation.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have some cameras and they cut it like
Mm.
a movie. They cut
Mm.
an investigation that makes it look like a movie. And
Yeah.
they make it so real and all of those things. So all these innovations that are coming out of journalism is by virtue of our audience. Our audience
mm,
have moved from the audience that reads to the audience
mm,
that watches.
mm,
And so if you can have a video of me, even these days, even for radio stations now, I think I had I was recently on radio some 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and
mm,
they're asking for an audio visual. So they don't want to hear my voice anymore. They also want
yeah.
to see me speaking. And
Mm,
so for everybody in the industry, whether you are radio, you are TV, you are online, you are print, everybody is beginning
mm,
to incorporate different aspects of multimedia into social media. It has not, and it has made it, has raised the stake because now we have fake news,
mm-hmm.
we have deep fakes,
Yeah.
and we also have the media,
Mm,
and we have the new media. But
yeah.
these are newer challenges that the media has come into. And I just
Mm,
think that the media is just trying to evolve as much as social media is also evolving as well. Now we have
yeah.
TikTok accounts, we have
Yeah.
Instagram accounts, just to
Mm,
meet up with audience that are now moving at a
mm,
very rapid pace.
yeah. And we also have the challenge with the citizen journalists or bloggers who are also doing just anything at all to survive amongst the eyeballs and make the millions.
I think that journalism has to show what it is. I mean, one of the
Mm,
mantras that we have at ICRR is that we want to, despite the fact that things are happening, we also want to show them that journalism is not just something that anybody can come into because it
yeah.
has, say, 1 million followers or thousands of followers, something that has to follow the process of being, you have to verify it, you have to show and not, you have to show your process of getting your information, you
Mm,
have to do the due diligence of getting both sides to speak. And so
mm,
I think that what we need to do at this point for journalism and for journalists is that we should try and let people know, okay, this is what journalism is, this is what journalism is not.
mm,
So citizen journalism, citizen journalists just come here, put on their camera and say, okay, this is what's happening live.
mm,
They never ask anybody on the streets
yeah.
to get an eyewitness account. Never ask an authority. If you're fact checking a story, they'll tell you to ask a PRO or someone, an authority. They
Mm,
never maybe spoke to an expert or spoke to an authority to weigh in on the different opinions. They never even
mm,
expanded the conversation because nowadays, when you want to submit a story for an award, they look at what conversation are you trying to drive in the whole of the story. So you
yeah.
just put on your camera or most times put on your camera and just say, okay, this is what's happening here and now. And I keep asking them, where is it happening? Why is it happening? What's going on? So that is the those are the flaws of citizen journalism. And
Mm,
that's why as journalists, you have to keep letting people know that journalism is different from sightseeing, or
yeah.
journalism is different from someone just putting out his camera and saying these days now a lot of people also join the police, join everyone to put out their cameras and say, you know, I was at this event when this was happening. But
Mm,
saying I was there when it was happening is not journalism. Journalism is going to be interrogating all the facts. What's
that's right.
happening? Why is it
Mm,
happening? Where is it
mm,
happening? Who are those involved? Why should this be happening?
yeah.
Why should it even matter?
Mm,
So I think journalism will also need to. These are some of the things that are happening because of the social media, the
mm,
convergence of social media. So as we are evolving with that convergence, we're also trying to let
mm,
people know that, okay, this is what journalism is, this is what it is not, so that people
mm.
can also be well educated about some of.
You've done 7 years. If we are to go back into time, 9 years, are you still going to choose journalism?
Well, I think I was looking for a medium of expression,
Mm,
and I'd always wanted to be a thought leader on
mm,
some things that matter to me.
okay.
So even if I were not a journalist, by profession, I would
Mm,
always share some of my thoughts on a broad based scale. I mean, one of the
mm,
things that my parents taught me growing up was the importance of, of speaking out,
mm,
of sharing information. So whether
mm,
it is through a visual platform or whether it is written in
mm,
books, I mean, these are the ways. So turning back, I think I would have done this, maybe even in much more better modes
Mm,
than even now. A colleague of mine, one of the colleagues of mine that was speaking to me about my career move when I was in school,
mm,
now owns a podcast,
okay,
now runs some does something similar to journalism as well. He
okay.
runs a podcast, interviews people and all of those things. I just
Mm,
realized that almost everybody has a means of expression. And
yes.
somehow the media is enough to take everybody that wants to have that means, whether it's collective or whether it's individual, as long as, and the media also has a way of filtering the right voices or the wrong voices. So for me, I think that going back, I would have actually found a way to keep my voice heard, whether as a writer of books, whether owning a podcast as we are now, or owning a YouTube channel, even in the future, or having a media company, or being part of being an employee writing
Mm,
somewhere. I think that everybody deserves that right, and I think that I would have done the same for myself.
mm. There are calls on PENSDOWN, this program, that journalists should be licensed. Do you support these calls? Should journalists be licensed?
I have to ask, licensed in what way? Is it that
Well,
in
they compare they compare it
what they
to
say, or are giving?
they compare it to the licensing regimes of lawyers, medical doctors, and the likes. That
Hmm.
journalists should also be made to go through a similar licensing regime before being allowed to practice.
Well, this conversation has existed all through media. I mean, for
Mm,
many years, even before now. Um, for someone like myself, I did not study mass communication.
okay.
I studied English, and then I
Mm,
began to intern as a reporter. I was doing that while I was in school, and then I began to find a medium of expression out of school with a media house. And there's some people that also did journalism, went through the 4 years, even went to school of journalism and the likes. In the end, I think what would separate everybody from each other is the work that they do.
mm,
And while licensing, I think everybody is licensed in some way. I mean, a serial journalist is licensed. So for myself, I have gone on fellowships and several trainings.
mm,
So I'm not just a product of one training. I'm a product of
mm,
several trainings, and I still
okay.
apply for more trainings.
Mm,
So if that can be a yardstick for saying, okay, this should be who a journalist should be,
mm,
then that's fine. I mean,
mm,
no serious journalist to call himself a journalist or even an editor that has
yeah.
not gone on a serious training, whether it's a Bloomberg training, whether it's an investigative training, you actually
Yeah.
need lots of training to keep up to standard. So I think that instead of saying licensed in a word, we can say that,
Mm,
okay, can you go on the required number of trainings to show that
mm,
you know this stuff, to show that you
mm,
are also writing it or working according to the ethics of standard, because there are lots
mm,
of books by IPC, the International Press Center. They have press centers, I think in Abuja, they have some in Lagos here.
mm,
They have so many workshops.
mm,
So, I mean, instead of saying, okay, license, as per maybe not everybody might actually study journalism, but at
mm,
least everybody should actually endeavor to go through two,
mm,
three rigorous trainings, maybe once a year or once in 2 years. This year, I've gone on my own training as required
okay.
by my organization.
Mm,
So, and it's almost my organization, ICIR, does trainings on a yearly basis
okay.
and encourages everyone to also
Mm,
participate in one way
yeah.
or another. At least there's no how you won't be in the organization, you won't get. So I think that journalists should go on number of trainings and be
Mm,
encouraged by the organizations, whether the organizations organize it for them or whether they push them
mm,
to organizations that are organizing it as. But I think that it's important that journalists go on trainings.
mm. What stands out as your most challenging assignments?
There are a couple of them. There are a couple
Okay.
of them that are challenging. I think the most challenging assignment I had for this year. was an investigation I did in Oshogbo. The
Okay.
story of and Oshogbo is in Osun State and
Okay.
Lagos.
Mm.
Oshogbo is in Osun State in Nigeria, in
Mm.
South Nigeria, and Oshogbo is the capital of Osun.
Okay.
And I got some tips that there was an abandoned tourist center
Okay.
by tourist center was built in the Aregbesola administration in 2011.
Okay.
After like a term of 8 years, um, the governor at the time, he built the park, he completed the park. The park was
Mm.
actually work,
Yeah.
but the governor that succeeded that
Mm.
Aregbesola, that's
Yeah.
the next week, failed to look after the park. Failed to look
Mm.
after the park, and as a result, some of the facilities in that park,
Mm.
began to go bad. And I know that's also a problem with African governments.
Yeah.
And when a president is in, when he runs his
Mm.
agenda, there's no continuity from president to president or even governor
Yeah.
to governor.
Yeah.
And when I got to know of that, I first had to go undercover to check out the project
Mm.
and see if those things were true. When I
Yeah.
realized that some lights were missing, I even found some goats. Some goats had made their way into the tourist center. Some goats
Wow.
were around there. In fact, the wall,
Mm.
some part of the wall were down. So people were even
Mm.
spreading clothes on the wall.
Oh.
You know, the community around it. Some people are coming to the community, and a lot of things were happening around that place that needed to be reported.
Okay.
And so I began to report the story, where I realized that, in fact, the first setback I had, I
Mm.
didn't get the funds. I didn't get the funds for that story on time.
Okay.
So I applied for the funds. I think some days ago. I mean,
Mm.
a week ago, before I went on to do the story,
Mm.
and the funds didn't come. And my boss kept telling me, "Go and do the story. Go and do this. You can get it done." And I think it was in the middle of the month, and I had to
Mm.
travel on my own funds.
Okay.
I got to the place, and when I realized what was going on, I had to pay for hotel and stay there for, I think, some days. When I started the investigation, I realized I had to pay like extra days in the hotel to
Okay.
stay. But when I
Mm.
wanted to see, I couldn't meet. And
Mm.
even when we scheduled Monday to meet the leader of that community where that project
Mm.
was domiciled in,
Yeah.
we are not so sure that we'll meet him. And so I was so worried and scared about that project. But we finally did meet him. But at the end of the whole thing, when I done the investigation, the major groundwork,
Mm.
the government won't talk. I tried to get to the government, they all
Mm.
refused. They
Mm.
kept telling me that I should not bother and this is not important. And they all kept I wrote an FOI twice, and the story was
Mm.
on for 6 months. Couldn't get details of the contract that was signed. So
Wow.
that's just to show how bad some governments, especially
Mm.
Osun State governments, how they don't expose their budget, how their budget is not open for people to see, how their
Mm.
contracts are not open. And it's not just Osun State alone, it's the whole of Nigeria and even the whole
Yeah.
of Africa as a whole.
That's right.
Most of them are not transparent in how
Yeah.
much is being spent.
Mm.
And the project actually gave me a lot of headache until it was finally published, I think, some weeks ago,
Mm.
after we did FY. And even the FY that we mandated the government to adhere to, the government didn't give us details of the contract,
Mm.
just to show how much money they could have wasted on that contract and how better that project could have been used. So it was one of the most challenging projects for me, I think, for this year. And I used to have some of those things like that. Most of every year that I go and do an investigation, there's
Mm.
always an issue with
Mm.
government um, hiding information about their budget,
Mm.
hiding information about their what they are spending. Some of them even neglecting projects. And these
Mm.
are some of the things that as journalists we try to expose every year, year in, year out, just to show how government continues to waste resources and
Mm.
nobody holds them to account.
Mm.
So one of the major challenges I've had, even as a journalist, is getting government to come clean to the table and say, you know what, I committed so amount to the project, and this is where I am. Most of them can never come to admit that. Same thing happened to me when I was working on the NURTW
Mm.
story on thugs in Lagos State. Some of them that are making more money than the government itself. We
Wow.
had an investigation last year on in the ICIR. The story revealed that some of those thugs, they extort money from the transport guys in the
Mm.
state, as both the keke and both the tricycles, the
Mm.
motorcycles.
Yeah.
Some of them even extort from cab drivers that come
Wow.
and pick people, and they make so much money, up to 1.1, up to 100 billion per year. They make up
Wow.
to 100 billion per year, and the money doesn't go to the state government. It
Mm.
goes to private coffers of thugs who call themselves NURTW people. Because and
Mm.
they don't give money to the government at all. They use the money for their own benefit. And I realized that to, some of our reporters, to get that story done, he had to
Yeah.
collect his own data. He had to collect his own
Mm.
data. Government didn't give any data at all. When I revisited
Okay.
the story this year and did a series on it, I also had to go on the street myself to collect data. Some of them were very scared to talk to me. And I was like, you people are being extorted. I'm trying to help you to bring this into public. And you are scared of telling me how much is being extorted from you on a daily basis. Don't you want to be free of this extortion that you are giving out? Because someone makes 5,000 naira a day, and half of
Mm.
that 5,000 naira, that's 2.5, is given out on extortion daily, not even on a weekly basis, on a daily basis. And you have to
Wow.
create that data by personally going to verify from
Mm.
drivers, motorists on the road, and asking them
Mm.
this. And this affects the movement of goods,
Mm.
it affects movement of individuals.
Yeah.
Whenever there are issues that are around um oil hike and
Mm.
fuel hike, they calculate the cost of the extortion plus
Mm.
how much they spend on gas, on fuel, and then how much they gain to then create their own transportation price. And every time it continues to go up, it doesn't come down. And people
Wow.
that suffer from those kind of things are commuters in Lagos who have to suffer to pay more for
Mm.
what they are not the cause of.
Yeah.
So these are some of the little um pressure points or pain points that
Mm.
happens when you are doing investigation. And for
Mm.
me, that I've experienced personally, a lot of times,
Yeah.
government hide data on how much they are spent, on how much they intend to spend. Government
Mm.
hide data on what is going on in their own vicinity, in their own
Mm.
regions, and they
Mm.
refuse to give release those data. And most times you
Mm.
have to go on your own and create the data yourself. And
Wow.
sometimes they come out and then discredit and say that this is not true.
Mm. Has your family ever expressed worry that some of the works you are doing can get you into trouble, so you should slow down, or you have their full blessing for what you do?
No family is ever happy with any journalist doing doing stories like this that
Mm.
always are that always in the government space. Even the government themselves, in
Mm.
fact, also identify some of these notorious faces. They'll say, oh, I remember some of the stories I do, even sometimes for the Lagos State, some of them even get to call me and say, don't you get tired of these things? Are you not tired of trying to always put some of these facts in people's faces? Why do you want them to know about this? Is this important? And some of them, for fear of some of them come out clean and say, okay, this was going on. Some of them refuse to comment on it at all. And my family are actually they wish I could stop all of these things. But
Mm.
the for me, the drive for me is the fact that I think a lot of Africans, and by extension Nigerians, they don't see that politics and economy are
Mm.
intertwined. They don't
Yeah.
see how a politician's prosperity, which is taken off from our commonwealth
Mm.
of taxes,
Yeah.
how our commonwealth of taxes is benefiting a politician's prosperity. And the only way we can go to growth is to find a way to, you know, cut down some of the excesses of government.
Yeah.
and allow the resources to go around everyone so everyone can thrive. So
Mm.
the essence of some of the reports that we do, even for government, is just to let some of them don't even know this data. Surprisingly,
Mm.
some of them don't even have a record of this data that we put out for them. The amount they spend on extorting motorists that we put out last year, the
Mm.
ICI put out last year
Yeah.
in 2020. Most of them didn't know that so much money was being made off
Mm.
them. That's why they had to also try and find a way to close that leakage. They had to find a way to introduce their own tax
Mm.
to close that leakage. So some of them don't even know at all. So this thing scares my parents, it scares everyone around me and all. But the essence of this thing is to let people know that these are information that you people should know when you are going for the next elections, when you are electing the next person that comes
Mm.
to lie to you or comes to is information for you to consume, to arm
Yeah.
yourself with, to also use to confront these politicians and tell them, you know what, we know who you are, we know what you do. This is a record of what you do. We won't vote for you. You don't deserve our vote. We'll vote for someone
Yeah.
else. Or
Yeah.
to even decide on how the country should be run, whether the country should be together or should be split, to create referendums and all of those things. So the information is actually very useful. And someone has to defy all of these fears and
Mm.
encumbrances to bring the truth to the public.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I've chosen to do as long as I can.
Yeah.
As long-
What are your golden memories these 7 years? Any golden memories to share?
yeah, I remember there was I think one of the good things of journalism is when I get to
Mm.
travel the country
Yeah.
because I think journalism has taken me around the country and out of the country.
Mm.
Even if I feel that if I were doing some other job, I won't be able to travel as much as I travel with this journalism. I mean, I remember when I was serving in Jos
Mm.
as a corps member. I was
Mm.
able to go from Jos to Kano by road to just see the beautiful serenity like of Nigeria. I really
Yeah.
enjoyed that. I enjoyed even being in Kano, but they were
Mm.
speaking a lot of Hausa to me. I didn't understand Hausa, so
Okay.
but I enjoyed like seeing a beautiful city. And then I
Mm.
think one of my golden memories was when I was out um the country in 2020, although that was during the
Okay.
pandemic. But
Mm.
I think we were in South Africa then. It
Mm.
was my first time being in the country, and first time being in a plane for over 6 hours.
Wow.
Traveling the country. I've been in the plane before, but I
Mm.
mean, and I think that was my first midnight flight. But we
Okay.
traveled. We left Lagos around 1 a.m.
Mm.
Johannesburg around 6 a.m.
Okay.
It was a way to leave my comfort zone and go somewhere else to see how the world is.
Mm.
And there was also a big lesson for me because I realized that some of the things that we are fighting for here, some people have it easily there. I
Yeah.
mean, Nigeria does got its first major railway line in Lagos to
Mm.
Ibadan that was
Mm.
built by Amechi. You go to South Africa, you see lots of train, lots of railway, like lots
Mm.
of railway. You
Mm.
see obedience to traffic rules. You
Yeah.
see everybody well comported. There was free Wi-Fi in the mall in Mandela
Mm.
Square, and we had cheap food. Yeah, but some
Mm.
of these things we don't have in Nigeria. We don't have cheap food like that in Nigeria.
Yeah.
We don't have lots of train. We don't even
Mm.
have electricity that is 24 hours.
Mm.
We don't have free Wi-Fi in our ShopRite mall or some of our malls that are in Nigeria here.
Yeah.
So while it was a good means of also, seeing the world, it was also one of the
Mm.
ways of also, understanding that this is where I'm coming from and why our own country, Nigeria, has to be greater than some of these
Mm.
countries. As much we share so much wealth, and
Mm.
someone like South Africa now, they have maybe the mining, most of their wealth is probably from mining and some other,
Yeah.
but majorly from mining. But Nigeria is lucky to be blessed with mining, blessed with oil, blessed with
Mm.
even tourist
Yeah.
potentials and so many potentials. So while it was a means of having some good moments, it was also a means of reminding me that we need much more better leaders in this country to
Mm.
bring our potentials out and help our country to be better than most of these countries that are bound here. Mm.
Politicians and people associated with politicians are increasingly owning media outlets. In Ghana, for instance, it is a trend that is really up on the market now. Is there a reason to worry as a growing democracy that the increasing political ownership of the media portends something negative? Is there a reason to worry?
I think there's every reason to worry about politicians owning media because um, media is a narrative. If you were trying to like break it down to the list, is a narrative.
Mm, mm,
And just like PR, one of
yeah,
their keywords in PR is spinning.
yeah,
So some people are spinning the narrative. So
mm,
and then if you listen to Chimamanda, she'll tell you that there is a single story, the danger of a single story.
single story, that's right.
Yeah, so I think that for politicians owning media it's actually showing us a single story. And
Mm,
Chimamanda will tell you that there's a danger of having one story. You get
mm,
the truth. I watched the movie. I think there was a movie that I watched. I've forgotten the title of the movie now. A Nigerian movie. I think one of the quotes on that Nigerian movie is arbitration, 2017
mm,
arbitration. They tell you in that
okay,
movie that there is what is true. No, they said that there's his side, her side,
mm,
and the
mm,
truth.
okay,
So for everything, there's his side, her side, and then the truth is what is in the middle. So
mm,
what journalism is doing is trying to bring out the truth that's in the middle of his
yeah,
side and their side. So we're not even
yeah,
saying that maybe this politician is right than this politician. We're saying that okay, this is the truth compared to what the politician said and what the politician said.
yeah,
When politicians own media houses, they
mm,
are trying to create their own truth, which might not be the real truth. So they're trying to create their own side of the narrative
mm,
on one hand, and
yeah,
the other people are also on the other hand. So they're not bringing out the true side of that
mm,
narrative, and that's the danger of many media, many politicians owning media houses, and we can see that even sometimes in the way it is run. For Nigeria now, Nigeria has a lot of examples of some politicians owning media, and I'll
yeah,
tell you that some of the things that characterize that phenomenon is that some journalists are being old,
mm,
some of them are being old, like some media houses that own they don't pay journalists that much because they don't see the need
yeah,
for them. Yeah, some of
mm,
them even end up giving politicians awards, which when you give a politician an award as probably the best defender of the year, or let's say the man of the year, or the defender of the whatever what they brand as an award, you cannot hold the defender of the year
mm,
accountable for not building primary healthcare centers in this
yeah,
in you can't hold so all of these things are trying to like they're all trying to create a narrative of theirs with their
mm,
own media houses. Now even some media houses would go to an event, will report an event in favor of
mm,
the candidate. We say, okay,
mm,
do you know what? This event was because of this candidate. They will just keep praising the candidate because of he owns the media station. Apparently, they have to eat, and the media, the politician is the one that will pay the salaries. So all of these politicians owning media houses, they
yeah,
tend to show the worst part of the job. They tend to obscure the truth a lot, and if more of them own media houses, the
mm,
truth will not prevail. The truth will
yeah,
not be public. And
mm,
so there's a need for media houses to be owned by journalists, as well as even some private sector that are
mm,
unaligned. Because
mm,
even if you say let's private sector own it, some of them also have interest because some of them are businessmen. But it will
mm,
be good in the interest of many if journalists and private sector, can
mm,
have sort of a joint kind of, you know, ownership on the media, and it's not becomes a tool for
mm,
politicians to continue to spin the truth
yeah,
over and over again.
okay. Are you doing journalism for life?
Well, that's a very difficult question to answer because
Mm,
um, the job, the job is a lot of running around,
mm,
and for some of us, some people change identities when they're on the run. Some people
mm,
have to, some people have to exile themselves from the country
mm.
at one point. I mean, the likes of David Undenyi
Yeah.
uh, had to leave the country and to
Mm,
go and stay somewhere else just because of he wants to continue doing this job. Um,
mm,
and then of course there's a need of some people want to retire to family and all of those things. I would
mm.
love to still take family seriously.
Okay.
But for now, I still enjoy the job. I still enjoy
Mm,
the job. In the future, a lot of things may change for me personally,
mm,
but for now, uh, I enjoy the thrills of it. I enjoy the running around, the jumping around,
mm.
the fact verification and all of those things. I still enjoy it for now.
Right. Let's talk about the brown envelope. In Ghana, they call it Sole. Sole is actually the shortened form of solidarity. In Cameroon, they call it Gombo. In Nigeria, the English name is brown envelope, or somewhere it is called Kwa, somewhere it is called Balamu, depending on where you find it. What's your take on the brown envelope? Good,
Well,
bad, or ugly?
just like the brown envelope, it's just like also trying to get someone to also forget a story. Um,
Mm,
I'll blame the poor pay of journalists. It's very sad. A lot of people are not being paid well in this job.
mm,
I empathize with them that are not being paid well. And some of them that have families to feed and don't want to leave that job. It's quite I'll say I empathize with them because um it's not easy as an African to have a family that you cannot take care of. That's on one hand. On the other hand, the best thing to do is not to be tied to these things because he who pays the piper will dictate the tone of that
yeah,
piper.
call the tune.
So it means that as a journalist, you are tied and you have no voice at all. I mean,
Mm,
I think 2 years ago, we had an event and a governor came in, governor from the northern state of Nigeria. I won't mention his name.
mm,
And you know, I myself, I was not aware of anything. I just came to cover the event and I was there and then I saw it myself. The guy put a hand in his babariga and brought out like I think 500,000 naira
mm,
and slapped it on someone's hand. And then everybody jumped in to a room and we had to negotiate. And I was like, look, and I look at them and I I was trying to get to the governor, but I missed the lift. And
mm,
while I was trying to reconcile where the governor was, because I was trying to
mm,
like and put the questions to him, couldn't get him anymore. So while I sat down at the last floor, counting my loss and thinking whether I should leave or not, I saw someone crying that they didn't give her anything. And I was like, who didn't give you anything? And they're like, oh, they're sharing some money upstairs there. And like, are you not interested? And I'm like, I did not come for that. I was trying to get the governor and I missed the lift. So I'm on the last floor, on the ground floor, and I didn't know. I know she was actually crying and being very hysterical about it. And I just shook my head and it was quite sad. I don't believe in the idea of the brand envelope because it doesn't give people the originality that they deserve. I think
yeah.
for the better part of the job, it's like a slave chain. It keeps you there for as long as possible.
Mm,
I think the only time that I think the time that a journalist can begin to say no to these things is when some of the positions begin to respect you. When they realize that you cannot be bought by money or gifts. That way, they would not be able to ignore you. They will also not be able to discredit you, and they will not be able to blackmail you. There are so many
mm,
journalists in this country that they have blackmailed and said, you know what, I know you. I mean, some years ago, you used to be this, you used to beg me for money. I used to fuel your car before, and all of those things. So I think it's a matter of self-respect.
mm,
I think it's a matter of I think it's a matter of it's majorly a matter of self-respect. And like look what Vodun will say, I mean, you have a right to leave the job if you think it's not going to meet your needs. But if you continue to tie yourself to somebody because of what they are benefiting from, you may never get your independence. And um, I don't know how that will be for a journalist to be of
mm,
a journalist of repute tomorrow. So for me, I don't like to tie myself to. I like to be independent of anybody. I like to do my job, and get it done, and go home. So I think that a lot of journalists should try and consider the ripple effects
mm,
of these things to their own integrity. Because beyond the fact that it stops your independence, it also affects your integrity. You can't come out tomorrow and say, or come on any platform and say, you know what, I did this story, or I'm proud of this moment, or I did this, or my reporting stopped this in the country, stopped that in the country. You can be proud of it when you are not, but when you are bought, you tend to hide away, and that's not too acceptable for one.
mm,
So it's best for people to find a way to unshackle themselves from these chains. And if they
mm,
think that job is not paying them as much as they should, of course, there's a choice to leave the job, uh, so that they can save themselves, from all of these issues that happen with scandals and
mm,
all of this
mm.
occurrences.
Have you ever taken a brown envelope in the line of duty?
Well, for me, I don't.
Yes.
I don't support. I don't allow. I don't allow those kind of things. I always tell them that please, no, can keep it. You can keep it. You know, I would rather, go. I would rather ask them for an interview, or just keep it. Let me do my job. My job here is to do this. Let me do what I want to do, and let me go my way. Yeah, I didn't ask for any. Well, even when we do interviews, I tell them, say I don't ask for any, because some people want to drop you off. Some people want to say, you know what? Some people buy lunch sometimes, and some people might want to entertain you.
Mm,
Sometimes you can allow them to probably entertain you if it's probably of course you want to entertain me, no problem. At least me, you can have me a bottle of can have me a bottle of juice. I mean, if I haven't
mm,
been entertained. But I mean, this is just for a purpose of probably our interview. I'm not collecting any. I'm not. This is not a favor. So to say, if you came
mm,
to my house, I also entertain you. So it's good to set those boundaries clear, but not to the policy is not to collect any undue inducement. So I always
mm.
like them to say you can't be having this. Sometimes a lot of them are.
Journalism is experiencing a lot of attrition. So many trained, qualified professionals are decamping to other areas. Some of them to public relations, others are also just going into anything that will give them survival. What is occasioning this trend?
I think the fact that the job has become. I think it's the poor pay, for one. I also think that some of the part of the brown envelope too has devalued the job. Like I was saying earlier, having the brown envelope has made people look at journalists as poor people. I also think that maybe also the mode of dressing sometimes some journalists don't carry themselves so well. And some of these things, when you look at it, when you think about it, when you look at the next person and look at this, you see so many examples that are not so inspiring to you. I
Mm,
think a lot of um, journalism graduates would rather go for something else. And well, as much as it's painful to admit, we are losing a lot of journalists with the way some of them are living, or some people are choosing not to practice. We are losing, and we are losing it because as we are losing journalists, we are losing consciousness. we are losing education, we're also losing accountability, and we are encouraging impunity from these our leaders that, as they say, for you to choose, do. If you don't want to do the job, it's fine. If you feel that maybe you may be compromised, your integrity may be in question, you can also go for something else that, or if you think that you want to make as much money as you want to do, you can become a business person, a business tycoon, and say, oh, I have a journalism degree, but I chose to do. Nobody would blame anyone. But the caveat is, if you are doing this job of journalism, there are ethics and there are rules. Try and adhere to those ethics and rules. If you choose not to do it, fine. But if you choose to do it, then there are some rules and ethics of the game that you must adhere to. So that's what I would just say to graduates that are deciding to join or not join.
Let me pull the brakes here. Thanks for this conversation. It's been exciting having you on PENSDOWN. Truly grateful, my brother, for your time.
Appreciate, appreciate.
This
Thank
has
you so
been
much.
PENSDOWN. Today I've had the presence of my colleague, Joseph Olaoluwa. He's an investigative journalist. Those are the people that can shake the bile of society's great and good with their kind of razor sharp reportage and cross-cutting surgical analysis of issues and all that. He says the passion is what drives him. Family may be concerned, but he has a duty to deliver truth to the people and also ensure that those that are enemies of the state do not have rests. We'll be back next time with another edition. Thanks for joining us. Bye for now.